Hi everyone, this is Teacher Rafael, and today I will be discussing about authentic assessment, its guiding principles. Constructing effective and valid authentic tasks can be difficult and time-consuming. That is why it is important that we observe the following guiding principles. First one is to focus on what really matters. The criteria used to judge students' work are reflective of the most important educational objectives. What teachers assess has important implications for what students consider important and ultimately what they learn. The most significant question to ask ourselves when judging our assessment practices is whether or not we are assessing what really matters. Are the criteria we are using, consciously or not, to judge students' work reflective of the most important educational objectives? Over the course of a unit or term, we should assess for all relevant goals, and the emphasis assigned these goals should reflect their relative importance. Completing what is called table of specifications is one strategy for checking that each goal is weighted appropriately in one's overall assessment plan. In a table of specifications, or also known as test blueprint, we can see whether particular objectives we did consider as more important were discussed in more in depth. This will have more emphasis in our assessments. Second one is to provide valid indications. Validity refers to whether a test measures what it claims to measure. For example, a driving test can only be considered as valid if it includes both practical driving and theoretical tests in driving rules. In other words, an assessment strategy is valid if it actually assesses the outcomes it claims to assess. The third one is to use assessment to support learning. Assessment practices can support learning in at least four of these important ways. Clearly communicate expectations. If students know clearly what is expected of them, they are more likely to be prepared and succeed at the task given to them. That is why it is important to discuss with students the scoring criteria and the standards for achievement of these criteria, like sample of students' work or performances which reflect quality work. These are presented before they perform the actual assessment task. Second is to involve students in the assessment process. Joint teacher and student negotiation of the criteria upon which students are to be judged increases students' understanding of what is expected and ultimately of their performance in light of these expectations. Also, educators can involve students by inviting them to assist in developing the tasks upon which they will be assessed. Furthermore, involving students in assessment, like in self-assessment, encourages students to take greater ownership of their learning. Third one is to provide helpful feedback on learning. We can enhance learning by helping students see how they might improve. Students must be given useful feedback or be provided with a carefully prepared rubric so that they can understand what they did well and where more attention is needed to improve their performance. And next one is to provide opportunities and incentives for students to improve. Where feasible, use assessment to encourage students to learn on their own and to revise and rethink their work. Some students may be motivated by supplemental tests or make up assignments for those who make some effort to improve their understanding. For students who are less motivated to engage in subsequent revisions, we must encourage them by asking students to redo only a part of the original assignment. We can also help them by creating additional incentives for revising a draft of their work. For example, every time they revise their work, we can give them praises or tokens in exchange later on for a reward. And commenting on but do not mark the initial mandatory draft. Establish that only the revised draft counts for marks. Make clear to students that only the last revised draft or work will be scored. And you can help students by asking them weeks or months later to revisit an earlier work to see how much they have progressed in the intervening time. And the last one is to use teachers' time efficiently. Although efficiency has no direct relationship to authentic assessment, the pressure on teachers' time means that changes, however desirable, are unlikely to occur if they are more time consuming. Early planning and preparation of marking sheets and rubrics, clearly articulated criteria and standards, clear expectations, and student peer and self-assessment can help save teacher time. So those are the guiding principles of authentic assessment. And the key points to remember in implementing authentic assessments in the classroom, teachers should assess the knowledge and skills that are reflective of the most important educational objectives. Students should be informed of what learning competencies they are expected to demonstrate at the end of every lesson. Teachers should use assessment strategies that assess outcomes they claim to assess and those that enhance student learning. These assessment strategies should be time efficient. So that ends our discussion on the guiding principles of authentic assessment. And here are the references used for this video. Thank you for watching and see you in my next videos.